Jim Carrey has been dropping hints for years, and one of the strangest, most unforgettable moments of his career may not have been comedy at all. When he sat across from Jimmy Kimmel, pulled out a bizarre hand sign, and declared it the all-mocking tongue, audiences howled with laughter, but Kimmel's reaction wasn't so funny. His smile cracked, his posture stiffened, and in that instant, you could almost see the tension ripple through the room. Was this just Carrey being Carrey, or had he chosen a late-night stage to slip out a truth most people would rather ignore? At first glance, it looked like one of those chaotic, unpredictable bits that only Jim could get away with. But replay the clip and you start to notice how serious his tone was under the silliness, how deliberate his words sounded, and how uncomfortable Kimmel became the more Carrey pressed. When he said, "I'm tired of the secrets and the lies," it's the symbol of the all-mocking tongue. The line didn't land like a punchline, it landed like a warning. Carrey's frustration with Hollywood had been building for years. To him, the industry wasn't just about entertainment, it was about distraction. He compared it to the Roman Colosseum, where brutal games kept the masses hypnotized while the empire crumbled behind the scenes. Only now, he suggested, the games weren't gladiators in the sand, they were celebrities on glowing screens, distracting audiences from what really mattered. Hosts like Kimmel weren't just comedians, they were performers trained to keep people laughing and docile, entertained, but asleep. Carrey wasn't grinning when he said it. He looked like a man trying to shake the crowd awake. And the truth is, this wasn't a one-time slip. Carrey had been dropping this same message for years, only most people laughed it off. He famously said he wished everyone could get rich and famous and do everything they ever dreamed of so they could see it isn't the answer. That's not the kind of line you expect from someone who had it all. Blockbuster movies, red carpets, millions in the bank. But for Carrey, success had turned sour. The glitz felt hollow, the spotlight blinding, and the laughter of the crowd just another distraction from deeper questions. When you rewatch that Kimmel moment with this context, it feels less like a gag and more like part of a bigger story Carrey had been trying to tell all along. To really understand the weight of it, you have to look at what late-night shows have become. They're not just comedy anymore, they're platforms for politics and ideology, dressed up with monologues and skits. Jimmy Kimmel, once known for harmless pranks and goofy humor, leaned heavily into politics over the last decade, delivering sharp attacks on one side of the spectrum while sparing the other. One of his most notorious moments came during the pandemic, when he joked that unvaccinated patients didn't deserve ICU beds. It was shocking, cold, and yet the audience clapped. The joke wasn't just a joke. It was a moral judgment broadcast as entertainment. To Carrey, this was exactly the problem. Comedy wasn't neutral anymore. It had been weaponized, turned into propaganda with a laugh track. That's where the divide between Kimmel and Carrey becomes so striking. Kimmel leaned deeper into the circus, his monologues shared across social media, his jokes fueling the culture war. Carrey, meanwhile, turned away from the spotlight. One man chasing relevance, the other chasing meaning. And when Carrey sat on that couch, staring down a late-night host, the contrast couldn't have been sharper. For him, the circus wasn't just unfunny, it was dangerous. But Carrey's transformation didn't come out of nowhere. In 2018, he lived through one of the most terrifying moments of his life. When Hawaii's false missile alert went out, he thought he had minutes to live. He sat by the ocean, staring at the horizon, and instead of panicking, he started listing everything he was grateful for. Gratitude after gratitude, until he reached what he called a state of grace. He thought those were his last moments on Earth, and when the alert was lifted, he walked away with a new clarity. The shows, the headlines, the circus, none of it mattered when you were staring down mortality. It's easy to laugh when the lights are on and the crowd is cheering. It's much harder to laugh when the end feels seconds away. That day, Carrey realized what really counted, and it wasn't fame. But the truth is, his disillusionment had begun years earlier, fueled by loss. In 2015, Carrey's girlfriend died under tragic circumstances, and the pain forced him to retreat from the Hollywood machine. Red carpets and interviews suddenly felt meaningless. He painted his therapy, withdrew from the noise, and started talking more openly about mortality and meaning. Fame had given him everything and then taken it all away. The carnival lights no longer dazzled. They just looked cheap. So when he sat across from Kimmel, mocking the spectacle, it wasn't random. It was the voice of someone who had been broken, reshaped, and no longer willing to play along. And maybe the most telling part of that night wasn't Carrey's words at all. It was Kimmel's silence. He didn't argue, he didn't push back, he didn't even joke his way out. He just smiled nervously and moved on. Why? Maybe because some jokes aren't safe to challenge. Comedy can be a shield, allowing truths to slip out without consequence. By wrapping it in laughter, Carrey made his accusations untouchable. You can't punish someone for telling a joke, even if the joke cuts deeper than anyone expected. But the double standard didn't escape Carrey's attention. Kimmel could make ruthless jokes about Trump, mock conservatives, even ridicule unvaccinated patients in the middle of a pandemic, and not only keep his career but thrive. Others who dared step outside the script weren't so lucky. Carrey seemed to be pointing out that this wasn't coincidence, it was protection. Certain figures in media have a safety net. They can say what they want, as long as it serves the larger narrative. That's why Kimmel could drift into controversial territory without consequences. He was part of the show, part of the system. And Carrey? He was the one who had stopped laughing. Over time, Carrey transformed completely. The man who once lived to make the world roar with laughter became quiet, contemplative, almost solemn. He traded red carpets for solitude, jokes for philosophy, and movie scripts for painting. To many, it looked like he had gone off the deep end. To others, it looked like he had finally seen through the illusion. His message was no longer, "Look at me," it was, "Look past this." He wasn't trying to entertain anymore, he was trying to wake people up. So, was Jim Carrey joking that night on Kimmel? Maybe partly, but comedy has always been his weapon, and in that moment, it became his disguise. By turning his message into a punchline, he made it safe enough to say out loud. But listen closely and it's clear. He wasn't just joking, he was sounding an alarm. He was saying the circus is fake, the distractions are endless, and the secrets are real. His question to the audience was simple. Will you keep laughing as the empire burns, or will you finally open your eyes? Jim Carrey's outburst wasn't really about Jimmy Kimmel, it was about Hollywood itself. A glittering carnival designed to keep you entertained, distracted, and asleep. Carrey had lived at the very center of that carnival, and it nearly destroyed him. His message now is the same one he's been hinting at for years. The circus doesn't have the answers, the spotlight doesn't bring peace, and the distractions don't matter when life gets real. If you can break free from the hypnosis, you might finally see what does matter. The question is, will we?